cruise ship ripped open, rocked flat on its side, the passengers who didn't survive, and the ones who had to swim to shore. Late word what's happened with the captain tonight, as we hear from the passengers themselves.
People were screaming, yelling, pushing, and I thought I was going to die.
Our correspondent reporting in from the scene this Saturday night. We begin here with the images from that deadly nightmare at sea. Passengers saying it was like something out of Titanic after this cruise ship ran aground near the coast of Tuscany. 4,000 passengers on board, and to give you an idea of its size, look at the ship, the way it dwarfs the rescue boats that rushed to the scene. More than 100 Americans were on board the Costa Concordia as it tipped over, a 160-foot gash torn deep into its hull, the crippled ship lying almost flat on its side, leaving desperate passengers to fight to swim to safety. And tonight here, we've learned that the ship's captain has now been detained. He's in jail. He faces serious charges, manslaughter, and abandoning ship before all of the passengers were off themselves. Tonight, the latest toll, at least 3 people known dead, some 40 others still unaccounted for. And ABC's Lama Hassan is in Porto Santo Stefano, Italy. She's tonight right there at the scene. Lama, good evening.
Good evening, David. We're standing in the port where many of those lucky survivors came after their harrowing ordeal. And tonight, a miraculous find. More than 30 hours after the cruise ship ran aground, firefighters have found a man and a woman alive. They're communicating with them, but they're not out yet. More than 40 passengers are still unaccounted for. The underwater search for survivors continues in the morning. As for those 126 American vacationers on board, none of them were injured. It was a frantic rescue operation, authorities having to crawl through the listing ship and divers searching underwater sections for anyone left inside. You can clearly see what they were up against. A gash running 160 feet along the side of the hull, water surging through the gaping scar. For passengers, it was a race against time to escape a scene they describe as utter chaos.
Everybody was just screaming out, all the passengers were running up and down.
Some vacationers panicked when the ship began to tilt, scrambling to get to safety by jumping. Several died trying to escape, but others made it to shore.
We jumped on the sea. Then we just swim, and then luckily there's an island near us.
Justin Baines from Little Rock said they were warned not to jump into the water, but he and a friend were glad they did.
One of the crew members was actually telling us we need to stay on, and that's when Mark was saying that we don't need to stay on because it was sinking so fast.
Passengers who stayed on the ship were ordered to put on life jackets and get into life rafts, echoing stories from the Titanic.
It was very difficult for the lifeboats to get down because the ship was at an angle, and so the lifeboat can't go down the side of the boat like this. And so one of the boats was full of 200 people, went down and caught on the railing, and the lifeboat tipped sideways and then fell and swung, and everybody's screaming.
Many passengers were having dinner when the ship suddenly lurched. They were initially told everything was okay.
And then they said that we should stay calm, it's nothing, it's just an electrical problem or just some blackout thing. But the ship was already tilted.
Over 3 football fields long, the ship had actually run aground and was taking on water fast. Passengers complained the crew failed them. The Costa Concordia is owned by the company that runs Carnival Cruise Lines. It's been in service since 2006 and does this trip every week of the year. The Costa Cruise Line has a long record of accidents on its ships. Well, tonight, ABC News has learned that the captain of the ship is being detained in a jail, facing possible charges of manslaughter as well as abandoning ship. Now, we are expecting more arrests to be made in this unfolding nightmare, David.
And Lama, we know it's often customary for passengers on these cruise ships to be drilled with safety procedures. Do we know if that took place on this particular ship?
Exactly, David. They were supposed to have those emergency drills, but they just didn't happen. And that's why a lot of the passengers were complaining to us tonight, saying they weren't given clear instructions on how to evacuate, so they simply didn't know what to do.
A lot of questions about that in the days and weeks to come. Lama Hassan reporting in from the scene in Italy tonight.